Production. Let's get it.
Welcome back to the Living Through the Pause podcast. I'm Dr. Butler, your favorite exercise scientist, and this is the space where we talk about all things women's health, strength, and thriving through every season of life. Today, we're talking about one of the most researched and most supportive eating patterns for women in perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause, the Mediterranean diet. If you've noticed shifts in your weight, your energy, your mood, or your metabolism, you're not imagining it. Your physiological is changing, and the way you nourish your body has to change with it. The Mediterranean diet isn't a trend. It's sustainable, anti-inflammatory, heart protective way of eating that aligns beautifully with the way your body needs during this stage. We're going to break down the science, the benefits, and the practical steps you can take to start eating in a way that supports your hormone, longevity, and your overall well-being. Let's get into it. During the menopausal stages, the drop in estrogen doesn't just cause hot flashes. It reshapes our entire body and how it operates. This hormonal shift rewires how we use energy, how we process nutrients, how we store fat, creating changes in us women that we feel long before we fully understand what's happening. During the estrogen decline, it causes fat redistribution from our hips and our butt to our midsection, increasing varicose fat. This visceral fat is metabolically active in all of the wrong ways. It releases pro-inflammatory cytokines straight into the portal veins, sending those signals directly to our liver and fueling a constant low-grade inflammatory state throughout our body. Then it ramps up insulin resistance, which means our body becomes far more likely to store glucose as fat and far less efficient at tapping into the fat we already have. Next, our metabolic rate drop, which means we burn fewer calories at rest. This is a result of loss of muscle mass. Then, as estrogen's cardioprotective influence fades, the liver shifts its gears, and we start to see noticeable changes in our cholesterol pattern. During the menopausal stages, nutrition becomes less about counting calories and far more about supporting the cellular shift happening beneath the surface. As estrogen declines, it alters insulin sensitivity, tissue structure, and the body's lipid handling, which means our nutrition needs to become more strategic to protect metabolic health and preserve lean mass. First, let's talk about carbs. Not all carbs are bad. In fact, we need them for energy, to improve insulin sensitivity, and they are essential for mood, sleep, emotional stability, and appetite. They're our body's preferred and most efficient source of energy. During the menopausal stages, they become even more important for metabolic health, hormonal balance, and muscle preservation. When carbs are too low, we often experience brain fog, irritability, poor concentration, and increased anxiety. Research shows that estrogen helps the brain use glucose efficiently. And when estrogen drops, the brain becomes less metabolic flexible and more sensitive to glucose shortages. Low carb diets suppress active thyroid hormone levels, which are responsible for metabolism, energy production, and fat burning. As well, it raises cortisol levels. High cortisol in midlife is associated more with belly fat, poor sleep, and increased inflammation. As we know, there are good carbs and there are bad carbs. Good carbs that work with our physiologically are digested slowly, they stabilize blood sugar, support gut health, and improve metabolic flexibility. Foods that are whole and rich in fiber, such as sweet potatoes, quinoa, farro, barley, oats, brown or rye rice, lentils, chickpeas, black beans, apples, pears, berries, Non-starchy vegetables such as broccoli, greens, peppers, zucchinis. These carbs have a slow glucose release, which means fewer spikes and crashes. They improve insulin sensitivity. They feed the gut microbiome. They reduce inflammation. They support satiety and appetite control. They help regulate cholesterol and lipid metabolism. Now, carbs that digest rapidly, that spike blood sugar and trigger insulin surges are the exact opposite of what we need, especially in a menopausal body. Foods such as white bread, white rice, regular pasta, pastry, muffins, croissants. Added sugar stuff like candy, sweetened coffee, drinks, soda. Y'all get the idea. Ultra processed snacks like chips, cracker, pretzels. We don't want none of that. During postmenopause, women experience something called anabolic resistance, meaning their muscles don't respond to protein in training the way they used to. Our muscle tissue now needs much stronger stimulants to trigger muscle protein synthesis. So when we eat low protein diets or rely on normal intake, we're never going to hit the anabolic threshold. The result is faster muscle loss, slower metabolism, and even a steeper drop in basic metabolic rate. Remember in the last episode, I mentioned that we need to eat at least 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of our body weight. We can do this by aiming 30 to 40 grams of high quality protein per meal. Next, we need to improve quality dietary fats, especially by increasing unsaturated fat and omega-3s, which have a powerful impact on a woman's health during the menopausal stages. These fat improve lipid panels, they support heart health, and they lower key cardiovascular risk factors at a time when estrogen's natural protection is declining. Finally, we need to eat food that helps slow down the bone remodeling and bone loss of bone density. Calcium isn't enough. Our body needs full support to actually get the calcium in our bones. So like vitamin D3 helps us absorb it. Vitamin K2 activates the oxycline. That calcium goes into our bones instead of our arteries. And magnesium is needed to convert the vitamin D into its active form. It's a collaboratory system, and when one piece is missing, the whole process breaks down. The Mediterranean diet is not a rigid commercial weight loss plan, but rather a nutritional framework modeled after the traditional eating habits of the regions bordering the Mediterranean Sea, primarily Crete, Greece, and southern Italy during the mid 20th century. Instead of eliminating an entire macronutrient group, it emphasizes high quality, whole food sources, nutrient dense foods, and healthy dietary fats. At its core, this is the way of eating pulls our body away from ultra processed inflammatory foods and centers on nutrient dense whole food sources that actually support our physiology. The primary fat source is extra virgin olive oil. It becomes the star of the show. Our main dietary fat. It replaces butter, margarine, refined seed oils with a heart protective anti-inflammatory fat your body thrives on. Now the foundation. Our daily intake is minimally processed plant food, colorful vegetables, fresh fruits, whole grains like farro, barley, oats, lentils, chickpeas, nuts, and seeds. These foods deliver fiber, antioxidant, and steady energy. Now the protein hierarchy. Fish and seafood take the lead. Ideally twice a week or more because they're rich in omega-3s that support the heart, brain, and joint health. Poultry, eggs, and fermented dairy products like yogurt and aged cheese, they play a supportive role. Red meat, processed meat, and refined sugars, they stay at the bottom of the list. The Mediterranean diet first entered the scientific conversation in the 1950s, thanks to American physiologist Ansel Keys. While studying global heart health patterns, he noticed something striking. People living in small post war villages across Greece and southern Italy, many of them poor in eating diets relatively high in total fat, had a dramatically lower rate of cardiovascular disease and lived longer than wealthy Americans. This paradox sparked decades of research and ultimately shaped how we recognize the Mediterranean diet. The data made one unmistakable thing clear. Communities that ate low amounts of saturated fat and high amounts of monosaturated fats from olive oil had the lowest rates of coronary heart disease. Decades later, in 1993, Old Ways partnered with Harvard School of Public Health and turned this body of research into something people could actually use. The result was the Mediterranean Diet Pyramid, a visual guide that distilled years of epidemiological evidence into accessible, everyday framework. The Mediterranean diet consistently ranks top of clinical interventions because it directly targets the root pathway of metabolic, cardiovascular, and cellular dysfunction. When you lay the Mediterranean diet over the hormonal and cellular landscape of a menopausal woman, it fits undeniably. This eating pattern directly supports the very system that estrogen used to support. It becomes a powerful, non pharmacological intervention that counteracts the metabolic, inflammatory, and cardiovascular disruptions triggered by estrogen decline. So, how does it work, Dr. Butler? I'm so glad you asked. First, the Mediterranean diet's high ratio of extra virgin olive oil directly targets stubborn abdominal fat. This way of eating is consistently linked to a smaller waistline and a meaningful drop in varicose fat in postmenopausal women, helping to quiet the body's chronic systematic inflammatory fire. Next, it improves insulin levels. The Mediterranean diet centers on high fiber, low glycemic complex carbs, which blunt the rapid glucose spikes that would otherwise trigger a big insulin surge. Remember the anabolic resistance and sarcopenia that I mentioned earlier? Well, the Mediterranean diet helps with that as well, thanks to its clean protein hierarchy. Regular intake of wild caught fish, poultry, and legumes provide a broad range of essential amino acids. Adequate lean protein maintains a significantly higher skeleton muscle mass index and upper and lower body strength compared to those who ate a standard low fat diet. Lastly, it improves cholesterol levels. Without estrogen to protect liver metabolism, the liver changes its activity and begins to produce small, dense LDL particles and high triglyceride levels. At the same time, HDL, which helps protect against heart disease, becomes less effective. This combination raises a woman's risk of cardiovascular problems as she enters her 40s and 60s. Walnuts and flax seeds, along with seafood, are high essential to the Mediterranean diet. These omega 3 fats lower the production of very low density lipoprotein, which reduces triglycerides levels in the blood. The diet is also rich in antioxidants that protect LDL particles from oxidation, stopping them from sticking to our artery walls and forming plaque. Shifting towards a Mediterranean style pattern doesn't require an overhaul of our entire lives. It's about making intentional, sustainable choices that support our physiologically, especially during the menopausal stages when our metabolism inflammation levels, and cardiovascular health needs are more targeted. Here's how we can begin to integrate this pattern today without feeling overwhelmed or restricted. One of the simplest and most powerful steps is replacing butter, margarine, and seed oil with extra virgin olive oil. This single shift increases monosaturated fats and antioxidants, which directly supports heart health and reduce inflammation. Next, build your plate around plants. Think of them as the foundation and not a side dish. Fill half your plate with vegetables. They can be raw, roasted, sauteed, grilled. They all count. Add 1 to 2 servings of fruit daily, especially berries. Rotate grains like farro, barley, quinoa, and oats. Include lentils, chickpeas, and black beans several times during the week. This will boost fiber, stabilize blood sugar, and support gut health, the three pillars of metabolic stability in the menopausal stages. Elevate your protein quality. Now, you don't have to give up animal protein, just shift the hierarchy. Prioritize fish and seafood 2 to 3 times a week. Include poultry, eggs, fermented dairy in moderation. You can cheat red meat and processed meat on occasion. This supports muscle preservation, omega-3 intake, and cardiometabolic health. Remember, carbs are not our enemy. Chose low glycemic, high fiber complex carbohydrates such as sweet potatoes, quinoa, barley, oats, beans, lentils, whole foods, and non-starchy vegetables. This is going to stabilize blood sugar, improve insulin sensitivity, and reduce craving, all the essentials that we need during the menopausal stages. Add a handful of nuts or seeds daily, like walnuts, almonds, my favorite, pistachios, flax seeds, chia seeds. These are going to support the lipid metabolic. It's going to reduce inflammation and it's going to help regulate appetite. To make food tasty, use herbs, spices, or citrus. Mediterranean eating is a naturally anti-inflammatory because it relies on garlic, basil, rosemary, oregano, lemon, and vinegars. These add antioxidant and flavors without relying on heavy sauces and added sugars. Lastly, you can start making these changes slowly. You don't need to overhaul everything at once. Choose an entry point. Start with a Mediterranean breakfast, which would be like Greek yogurt, berries, flax seeds, and extra virgin olive oils drizzled on top. Start with a Mediterranean lunch. Do greens, quinoa, chickpeas, extra virgin olive oil, and lemon. Or start at dinner. Have some salmon, roasted vegetables, and safaros. Small, consistent shifts creates big metabolic payoffs. And that's where we'll pause for today. The Mediterranean diet isn't about perfection, restriction, or chasing a trend. It's about choosing foods that work with our physiologically, not against it. As our hormones shift, so do our needs. And this way of eating gives our body support, stability, and nutrition that it deserves during midlife and beyond. Remember, you don't have to overhaul everything at once. Start with one change, one meal, one moment of intent. Small, consistent steps create big metabolic wins. If today's episode resonated with you, share it with another woman who's navigating this transition. And don't forget to like and comment. And as always, thank you for spending time with me. I'm Dr. Butler, and this is the Living Through the podcast, where we honor your biology, protect your longevity, and help you thrive through every chapter. Until next time, take care of yourself with the same compassion that you give everyone else. I will see you later.